Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Nicole and this is Dusty Book Sniffers, and today we're here for a little bit of a different video. It's the first time I've ever done this. It's the Women's Prize for Fiction 2024 prediction video for the long list, or should I say wish list. Anyway, let's get started. Well, good morning or good evening everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending it with me while I am on location at my daughter's house. You probably will notice the grass growing in the background because it is very humid and the sun is just starting to come out. We've got clouds. I don't know what the weather's doing, but it is hot and sticky. So it was too hot to do it in the house, so I thought I'd come out here and do this prediction video. So just to premise this, I have never done one of these videos before. This is the first time I've done it, and while I am saying it's a prediction list, it's probably more like a wish list. Some of these books have been on my radar. They've been sitting on my want to read list because I have a TBR and a want to read list, and I thought that I would just hang out until the long list is announced. Now, the long list will be announced on March the 5th, UK time, so it'll be around the 6th for us. I think it's early morning. So yeah, it'll get announced and we will have 16 books, and like last year, I'm going to read those 16 books. So basically that means that as soon as it is announced, you will get a weekly vlog of however many books that I have read. I'll either do them in lots of 3 or 4 or maybe even just lots of 2. It will just wholly and solely depend on how I can get the books. Now, last year, most of them I got on either audio or Kindle because I couldn't get the physical books and all that sort of stuff. Now, I will premise this by saying also that I have not read any of these books bar one that I read. I think I read it back in September last year because it was not long after it was released. Oh, that breeze is just beautiful. But we have got a list of 16 here. I have narrowed it down and it was tough. I have about 30 on my want to read list. A lot of them are romance, historical fiction, all that sort of stuff. But I think that they sort of vibe with the Women's Prize for Fiction in my experience. So yeah, so basically that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go through the 16. Now, as I said, the the long list is on the 5th of March, and I think the short list comes out about 6 weeks later, and then I think it's another 6 weeks after that the winner is announced. Now, generally what I do every year is once the shortlist is out, we set up what we're going to do. The winner is announced rather, not the shortlist. We look at the winner, we start with the winner, and then we read the rest of the shortlist throughout the year. That's generally what happens. I, however, did not read the second time around a lot of the books because I just wasn't. The ones that made it onto last year's list didn't float my boat. So they were great. They were still good books, but they weren't really what I was looking for. And the ones that I were looking for did not make it on the list. So just a little back story if you don't know who I am. I am Nicole, and my channel is Dusty Book Sniffers, and basically I read anything I can get my hands on. My tagline is an old chook with her books, and that is pretty much me. I have been really throwing myself into my reading and really throwing myself into the Women's Prize for Fiction for the last few years. Like, I've known about it for many years, but I never really threw myself into it until I think it's the last 3 or 4 years. So yeah, all right, so a little bit about the Women's Prize for Fiction. We have 5 judges, and you can see the picture here of the judges. I don't know any of these judges or their works or anything like that, so I'm not going to go into any detail or anything like that about them. But if you want to learn more about the judges, the link is down below where you can go and check out their website and you can learn all about them and their work. And most of you probably already know them. I'm not great with names or faces or anything like that, so yeah, I probably do know their works and just don't realize I do. So yeah, and also to be in the running for the Women's Prize for Fiction, you must be published in the UK between the 31st of March 2023 and the 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of March 2024, and you must be published in the UK, and no translated work apparently as well, which I did not know that. I don't know why I did not know that, but yeah, apparently no translated work. It must be written in English. All right, so, and this year we've also seen the inaugural non-fiction long list come out. Now, I haven't chose to do that, but there are a few books on there that I would like to get into, and I will probably get into them at a later date throughout the year, because I do want to incorporate a little bit more. And I have been asked by some of my viewers if I am going to do the long list. This year, no. Next year, maybe. We'll see how we go. It will also depend, you know, on finances and all that sort of stuff, because it does mean that will have to buy 32 books, because there's 16 on that one as well. All right, so the first one I'm going to talk about is one that I've actually read off this list. The rest I have not. It's Tom Lake. So this is set in 2020, if my memory serves me correctly, because I read this last September. And three daughters go back home to their parents' cherry farm. And while they're on the cherry farm, they are picking away, and they beg their mother to tell the story of Peter Duke, I think his name is, of a famous actor named Peter Duke and their romance story. And so the story just unfolds from that. It was a sweet story. I'm assuming it was, from memory, I'm pretty sure they went home because of COVID, and that's why they had to go home. But it was just a story about the daughters going home and keeping the farm running and all that sort of stuff. I absolutely love it. I thought it was a great read. I got it. It came to my attention basically because of the Reese's book club and book of the month, and basically that's why I got it, because I generally get those books, those new releases that she pulls to read for her book club. And so I was really happy that I got to read that. It was published on the 1st of August. It was published by Bloomsbury Publishing in the UK, and it's considered to be a romance historical fiction. It's got 309 pages. So that ends the book that I actually know 100% what it is about, because I've read it. All right, we're going to move on to the remaining 15, and we're going to go through these pretty quickly. I'm just going to give you a rough overview of what they're about, why they ended up on my list, and all that sort of stuff. All right, the next one is called Atlantia, and it is a retelling, a Greek mythology retelling. Atlantia was born a daughter, and from what I've read from the synopsis, she was a daughter born instead of a son, and her parents left her on a mountainside, and subsequently she was raised by bears. So it falls into the fantasy mythology. Okay, so as I said, it was published on the 13th of April in 2023, so early in the year. We also have 357 pages in this, and the imprint that released this was Wildfire, which is a headline publishing group imprint, and it is published by Jennifer Saint. Now, Jennifer Saint has several retellings. They are escaping me off the top of my head. I think Electra is one of them, and there was another one, but I cannot think. Adarin, I think, is the name of it. I think that's what it is. All right, so that I think will end up on the list. Now, the reason that I picked this is because last year we also had a retelling, and if you go back through, we've had a couple of Greek mythology retellings that have landed in the long list. Circe is one. Last year, Stone Blind was another one by Natalie Haynes. And so I thought, you know what, that's probably a safe bet, so I'm going to put that one. I've actually got two on here. The next one is Herc by, and I hope I pronounce this right, Phoebe Rogerson, and it is published by HarperCollins, and the imprint is HQ for that. It was published on the 31st of August, and it has 412 pages. This is a Hercules retelling. So basically, the tagline on this should be the story of Hercules. His 12 labors, his endless adventures, and everybody's favorite hero, right? Well, it's not. This is the story of everybody else. His mother, his best friend, etc., etc. It is told with humor and heart, and Herc gives voice to the silent characters in this feminist, queer, and sometimes shocking retelling of the classic Hercules myth. So this one really caught my attention, because I love it when an author takes a Greek mythology, quite a famous one, and then takes the characters that, you know, the secondary characters and all that sort of stuff, and I love that. So that's why it made it onto my list. So I'm pretty happy with that one. Okay, so the next one that we're going to talk about is called Learn by Heart by Emma Donahue. This was published back in August of 2023. It's got 322 pages. It was put out by Pang Macmillan, and the imprint that put it out was actually Picador. This one I don't know a great deal about, but I found it very interesting when I read the synopsis. And I'm actually, regardless of whether this is on the long list or not, this is actually on my want to read, and it's in the top 10 of my want to read for 2024. So I've just brought up a Storygraph, and we're going to have a look at the synopsis here. Basically what it says on here, a heartbreakingly gorgeous novel based on a true story of two girls who fall secretly, deeply and dangerously in love at boarding school in the 19th century York. Then it goes on to say, drawing on years of investigation and Anne Lister's 5 million word secret wow, that is a lot of words in a journal. Secret journal, Learned by Heart is a long buried love story of Eliza Rein, an orphan heiress banished from India to England at the age of 6. And Anne Lister is a brilliant, troublesome tomboy, and they meet when they are 14 years old at a manor school for young ladies in York in 1805. It's emotionally intense, psychologically compelling, and a deep research. Learned by Heart is an extraordinary work of fiction, by one of the world's greatest storytellers, full of passion, heartbreak, tangled lives of Anne Lister and Eliza Rein, form a love story for the ages. So apparently it is according to Storygraph, it's a very emotional and intense read. It's also a slow burn sort of read. But as I said, this is on my in my top 10. Sorry about that bird. It's very noisy, right? It's a honey eater, and it's over in a bottle brush tree at the moment. So and it's calling to its friends. I do apologise, but I can't help it. So yeah, this one, regardless of whether it is on the long list or not, is definitely in my top 10 to read. I think it's going to be, considering it's based on a true story, even though it's a work of fiction, the author's obviously drawn from the true facts from the journal. It is, if I didn't already say, it is historical fiction as well, and LGBTQIA+ is the labels that it has on it. So I'm super excited to read this regardless. Okay, the next one that I am going to talk about is I Am Homeless If I Am Not Home by Laurie Moore. This one comes in at 193 pages. It's published by Faber and Fable, and it was published in June of last year. This one sounded really interesting. This one is, when I looked it up, it's basically, it is the first novel that Laurie Moore has written since Gate at the Stairs. It is a book that is looking at love, death, and the human experience. And sometimes I just love reading those sort of books, so that's why it made it on here. It has a lot more to say about it. A teacher visiting his dying brother in the Bronx, a mysterious journal from the 19th century stolen from a boarding house, a therapy clown, and an assassin are both presumed dead, but perhaps not at all dead. And that's all I read, because I didn't want to go any further and discourage myself out of it. But I thought, you know what, I really like the sounds of this. It's got the human experience, love, death, it's covering all the things, you know, a little bit of grief in there, I'm assuming, as well. So that made it onto my list. It was a hard call, but I put it on there. And the reason why it was a hard call is because it came in at 193 pages, and I wasn't 100% sure if it was going to meet the word count criteria as well, because off the top of my head I cannot remember, but it has to have a certain amount, and no short stories or short story collections can be nominated. So that one is on the list. Rightly or wrongly, I do not know, but anyway, it sounded really good to me. As I said, this is a prediction list, but it's more like a wish list of what I want on there. Okay, so the next one that I'm going to talk about is called The Wren by Anne Enright. This was published back in August of 2023. It has 276 pages, and it was published by Vintage Publishing, and the imprint that put this book out was Jonathan Cape. So now that we've got all the nitty gritties for it, I'm not entirely sure if I would actually read this or not, but it was intriguing enough for me, and the reason being is because Anne Enright, if my memory serves correctly, has been nominated several times over the years, but I don't think she's actually been shortlisted. I could be completely wrong about that because I am purely going on memory. I did not do any of that research before I started to do this video because, yeah. Anyway, I think that she has been nominated quite a number of times, and so I would like to see her get up. So this one is this little novel is the explanation of family, love, personal growth is thrown in there as well, with the focus on complex relationships between mothers and daughters. So, and it's also using the power of poetry to capture the human experience as well. So I'm pretty excited that this is on here. As I said, I don't know whether it'd actually be mine, and I believe it is set in Ireland. And I'm just looking at the cover here, and it says it is the winner. It was the winner of the Booker Prize. I don't actually follow the Booker Prize that closely, so I wouldn't be able to tell you whether they were winners, losers, whatever. That is a little bit of a safe one because she's been nominated so many times and whatnot. Okay, so the next one that we're going to talk about is Good Material by Dolly Alderton. This is considered to be a contemporary romance. It was published in November of 2023. It has 345 pages. It was put out by an imprint under the banner of Penguin Books, and that is Fig Tree. And basically, this one is, as it says, every relationship has one beginning. This one has two endings. And this, I'm just going to read a little bit of blurb about it, and then we're going to move on. This one landed on the list because I just thought it was a great one, and I believe Dolly Alderton has also been longlisted before, and so I thought that this would be a great little one. I did look into all of that sort of stuff earlier on in the year, but it's all escaped my memory now, and I'm on location, so all my notes are at home, and so I've just got the basic notes here, so I do apologise for that. So Andy loves Jen. Jen loved Andy, and he can't work out why she stopped. He now is without a home, waiting for his stand-up career to take off, and wondering why everyone else around him seems to have grown up while he wasn't looking. And he has been set adrift in the heartache of breakup and heartbreak and all that sort of stuff. So it sounds like a little bit of a fun read. I'm sort of starting to, like, I've always read like romances and stuff like that, but I'm leaning more into contemporary romances now, and whatnot, just, you know, mixing it up still. I still read all my dark stuff and all that sort of stuff, but I'm now leaning to more into contemporary. All right, so that is that one. I hope that makes it on there because I'd love to read that very sooner rather than later, because it sounds like it's going to be emotional, but at the same time have some funny bits in it from the synopsis. That's how I feel about it. So yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one, shall we? Okay, so the next one on the list is How to Be Somebody Else. This one was published the 15th of February this year. I don't know too much about it, but when it popped up on my radar, I thought, oh, that sounds very interesting. So basically, it's got to, it was published by Vintage Publishing. It's a contemporary romance fiction, and so it's got 288 pages, and I've just read the synopsis again. I did actually take more notes on this when I was at home, and that sort of triggered my memory of why I wanted this to be on why I'm predicting that it's going to be on there. Now, I know nothing about this author. I've never even heard of this author before, so I have no idea whether she's been on the long list, the Women's Prize Fiction long list before at all. But this one is by Miranda Pye, I think is how you pronounce her name. And yeah, it sounds like a pretty good read. So basically, Dylan has, in New York 2015, a Monday, Dylan is about to turn 38 and walks out of a successful advertising career. Sublets her apartment and agrees to house sit for Anna, an artist that she has never met. Love these sort of scenarios, don't you? So basically this is and it goes on from there, just telling you what it's about and all that sort of stuff. But this one, the novel got my attention because it is about abandoning everything that you know, stepping out of your comfort zone and just seeing where it all takes you, and how you'll discover what you actually really want out of life. You know how when you feel like you're just a little bit stagnant and you just don't know where you're going to go in life? This is what tweaked my interest on this one. So yeah, so that is How to Be Somebody Else. It sounds fabulous, and I think that even if this doesn't make the long list, it'll be a book that I'll be reading very shortly because it's got me intrigued. She also meets a guy named Gabe as well, so, and then there's a romance, and he's married. Like, there's all the things that are happening in this, so you'll have to stay tuned. If it doesn't go on the long list, you'll have to stay tuned to see what I thought about this, whether it's just from the synopsis alone, I'm liking the sound of it, although I don't like infidelity normally, but this sounds like it's a bit different. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this one regardless of whether it's on the long list or not. Right, so the next one we're going to talk about is Red String Theory by Lauren Kung Jensen. I think that's how you pronounce her, Kung, sorry, is how you pronounce her name. And this was published in 2024 in January. It is by Headline Publishing Group. And the imprint was Headline. Basically, it's got 342 pages. It is a historical fiction with, it is a contemporary romance, reading the wrong one, because I've got my notes here. Basically, it's a contemporary romance. Now, it's also a rom-com as well. So not something that I typically have seen on the Women's Prize for Fiction, but I really want to read it. And I hope it's on there. So it's sort of my way out there, throw it in for good measure one. It just sounded like a fun time. So basically, it's it's heartwarming, it's charming, and basically we've got two star-crossed lovers. That a woman's life is guided by her belief that the red string finds her perfect match, but his skepticism about true love puts a knot in their chances. So just a date or a twist of fate is what I've read about this, and it just sounds like a bit of a fun time. I can see lots of things going awry in this one. I don't honestly think that this will land on the long list. I'll be completely surprised if it does. If it does, I'll be happy. It's sort of giving me it's just giving me those vibes of a fun time read and all that sort of stuff, and that's sort of why it ended up on there. But that is the one I've just slid in. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. The next one is a love song for Ricky Wilde. Again, it is, I thought I must be going into a contemporary romance era. It's historical fiction, magical realism, contemporary romance. It was published on the 6th of February 2024. It's got 342 pages. It is by Quercus Publishing, and yeah, that's all I really know about that because I have actually never heard of Tia Williams before, I don't think. All right, so what is a love song for Ricky Wilde about? Basically, this is, I'm just going to read it off the Storygraph synopsis here because I don't really know too much about it. I did see it, and when I read about it at the time, I added it to the list, but I honestly cannot remember why I added it to the list. But just looking at it here, it is magical realism, as I previously said, historical fiction, and a contemporary romance. Now, that's not surprising considering a lot of these books have been contemporary romances that I've been talking about. And I mean, who knows? Like I said, I've never done this before. It's just a bit of fun. I'm not taking it too seriously. And honestly, I don't take my books too seriously or anything like that. So this is set with the backdrop of the Harlem Renaissance and contemporary New York City. And basically, it just says it's an epic love story, 100 years in the making. And I thought, oh my God, this is gonna be awesome. I do love a historical fiction, and especially a lengthy timeline as well, because you can really fall into the story if the author does it really well as well. So it basically goes on to say, leap years are a strange and enchanted time, and for some, even a single February can be life-changing. Ricky Wilde has many talents. Being wild isn't one of them. As the impulsive artistic daughter of a powerful Atlanta dynasty, she is the opposite from her famous socialite sisters. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So it sounds like a little bit of self-discovery, finding your rebellious side and all that sort of stuff. And I'm always up for a story like that. And then throw in some magical realism around the leap year and all the rest of it, and I'm good to go. So that's why it made my list. Okay, so the next one is just a new contender to end up on my list. Basically, this one came to my attention the other day when I was on sprints, and a friend of mine that is always on my sprints and hanging out with me, and originally found me last year for my Women's Prize for Fiction vlog, and cannot go without mentioning, is Chris. And Chris pointed me in the direction of the author is Kate Grenville, and the book that we're going to talk about here is Restless, Dolly, Manda. Now, I'm probably not going to do this this any justice because I literally last week came onto my list, and I've put it onto the list because it was an Australian author, and let's face it, I want to put an Australian author onto this list. All right, so this was published back in November of 2023. It was put out by Congate Books. It's got 256 pages. It's historical fiction, and it's set in Australia. So from what I can tell from the synopsis and everything like that, it is basically following one woman's journey from the constraints of being a woman in the basically she was born at the end of the 19th century, and she's just going to push against societal norms. And I'm always up for something that is written about strong women forging their way and bucking the trend and doing things that other women aren't doing, basically. And this sort of sounds like that, so that's why it ended up on my list. Other than that, I do not know anything else about it. As I said, it is just popped on, and I had to put an Australian author onto the list. The next one that I'm going to talk about is another one that only just sort of popped up on my radar as well. Someone was talking about it, and it's called The Land of Milk and Honey. And this one is by C. Pam Zung, I think is how you pronounce the last name. It was published on the 26th of September 2023. It is another one put out by Penguin Publishing, but the imprint is Riverhead Books. It's I don't think I said it, but it's got 232 pages, so not an overly long book. And we all like a short book on the when we're going to be reading 16 of them very quickly. So yeah, so I'm pretty happy that we've got some short books on here. Okay, so what is The Land of Milk and Honey about? So from what I can gather, it's sort of like a cli-fi novel, and I'm thinking that this is probably the science fiction that I want to go into. So for those that have been around forever and a day know that I really struggle with sci-fi. And this one is set against the backdrop of climate change and a dystopian world. It's exploring the themes of desire, longing, and pleasure. And basically it is from what I can tell from the synopsis, a young chef takes a job, and it inevitably changes her world, and also other things happen around her as well. So this one is actually, as I said, looking at food, sex, and desire, and you know, the web of desire and longing. So it sounds intriguing. It's got a lot of things that I do like in a book, except for the sci-fi dystopian part of it. So I'm gonna hopefully it'll get on the list, which will force me to read it. But I think I might even pick this one up anyway, because as I said, I have been sort of looking a little bit more into cli-fi, and I think that I like the themes that are around it, because a lot of it is, you know, around longing and desire and all that sort of stuff, and I love those sort of things. So this one also made it onto the list. The next one, which is a late contender as well, even though this was published back in May last year, this one is The Mess We're In. This one is based around music, from what I can tell. It was put out by Wildfire, the imprint of Headline Publishing, and it was published, as I said, back in May, and it's got 376 pages. This one was published by Annie McManus, and this one, as I said, this one was a late contender. I thought, oh, that sounds pretty good. This one is a coming-of-age story about self-discovery, growth, and the power of music, set against the backdrop of a vibrant, pulsing city. Basically, I'm a Londoner now, and I'm a voice in the noise. I'm ready. It's the turn of the millennium, and I'm landing in London with nothing but a CD collection and a demo tape. So, and that's all really I'm going to say about that, because it looks like it's going to spoil some of the stuff, and I sort of want to go into this a little bit blind. So I'm super excited to see if this one gets on the list. I like the sound of it. I think that the pacing, from what I can see, it's sort of a slow to mid pacing. It's a bit reflective, and all that sort of stuff is all the things that it has on here. And as I said, this one only sort of came to my attention in the last couple of weeks, basically because I was searching for books that were published, and it popped up, and I'm like, oh, I like the sound of that. So I think that I will put that onto my list. All right, we've only got 3 more to go. The next one that we're going to talk about is Family Law by Elizabeth Vendo, I think is how you pronounce her name. This was published back in August. It's by Congate Books, and it has 370 pages. This one, again, is a fantasy magical realism. and it's called Family Law. Okay, so family law, from what I can tell, I've just brought my notes up for this one because I was really interested in this one because this is like a story about two sisters, and it's basically and the generations of women through a magical lens. So I was pretty excited about that because I love reading these sort of books. So the best way to describe this book, and a little bit about the author, there's a little bit of a blurb here. This is the first book that she's written for adults. So I'm assuming, I've never actually heard of this author before because rightly so, because if she's only ever written for young children or young adults, I don't read a lot of that. So that's not surprising that I haven't. But I couldn't go past this because this one just kept calling to me. I love the cover as well. Like, the cover is absolutely amazing. As I said, it is following the story of like a relationship between two sisters and generations of women, and looking through a magical lens. Flo has a gift, and she can predict the day when someone will die. So when she decides she wants a living wake, a party to bring her family and community together to celebrate the long life she's led, her sisters are surprised. Has Flo foreseen her own death or someone else's? Does she have other motives? She refuses to tell the sisters, Matilda and Pastora and Camilla. So, and then it just goes on from there. So it sounded like a really interesting story. I mean, imagine that, being able to predict when people are going to die and you decide you're going to have a living wake. At least you get to enjoy the party, I guess. And it won't be super sad because you haven't parted yet, but you're celebrating your life. Sounds very, very interesting, and I couldn't go past putting it on the list. Okay, so the next one that we're going to talk about, as I said, the last two have actually been either longlisted or nominated, in 2023. This one is an Irish lit, it's a coming of age book. It's called How to Build a Boat by Elaine Fenny. It was published in April of last year by Random House. And I didn't write down the imprint, and it has 298 pages. So again, not an overly long book, but this one is a story of imagination, the power of imagination, connection, and family. It's following the story of Jamie O'Neill. Loves the colour red. He also loves tall trees, patterns, rain that comes with the wind, and many other objects. Books with dust jackets, cats, rivers, and Edgar Allan Poe. At age 13, there are two things he especially wants in life: to build a perpetual motion machine and connect with his mother Noelle, who died when he was born. And then basically it just goes on to say that it's a story of how a boy and his mission transforms the lives of the teachers, Tess and Tad, and brings together a community written with tenderness. It's about love, family, and connection, and the power of imagination, and how our greatest adventures don't ever happen alone. So it sounds like a very interesting story. As I said earlier, I'm not one that follows the Booker Prize very closely, but I have read a couple of books off the Booker Prize and I've never been disappointed. It's probably a prize I should look at a little bit closer, but I actually know nothing about. I tend to watch people that do those lists, and that's how I find some of the books to read and whatnot. But lately I've just been reading a lot of popular stuff, and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to, sinking my teeth into some literary fiction and really trying to, see those connections that they like to make in all the books. And finally, the last book that we're going to talk about is Pearl by Sian Hughes. This was a Booker nominee for 2023. It's literary fiction. Again, it's set in Ireland. And I know there are some people out there going, Ireland, you don't like books usually from Ireland. No, I don't. But I still give them a chance because you never know, I will be surprised. So yeah, this one is published by Nonf, I think is how you pronounce it. Books. It's got 212, again a very short one, and it was published in August of last year. So Pearl by Sian Hughes looks to be another interesting book, and that's why it made the list. And I'm telling you, this list was difficult to narrow down. Alright, so I just love this cover. I don't know what it is about this cover. It's just the simplicities of the cover. I mean, a lot of these books have had beautiful covers, but this one, I don't know, it's just the simplicity of it that I love. Alright, so basically this is exploring the complexities of family dynamics and motherhood, and also the power of art to heal. emotional wounds and all the rest of it. So Marianne is 8 years old when her mother goes missing. Left behind with her baby brother and grieving father in a ramshackle house on the edge of a small village, she clings to the fundamental memories of her mother's love. The smell of fresh herbs, the games that they played, and the songs and stories of her childhood. Oh my God, I know I'm going to cry if this book ends up on the list. Oh my God, I'm just going to cry. I just know I'm going to cry. As time passes, Marianne struggles to adjust. Fixated on her mother's disappearance and the secrets that she is sure her father is keeping from her, she discovers a medieval poem called Pearl and is entrusting in its promise of consultation. Marianne sets out to make a visual illustration of it, a task that she returns to over and over again but never seems to complete. So basically it's about her trying to navigate her trauma from her mother's disappearance and using art to heal herself in that aspect. And I always like those sort of stories, but as I said, I know I'm going to cry because there's going to be a lot of stuff that pulls at the heartstrings. But it made the list of my prediction list. This is a very, very, very out there list, and I know that it's an out there list. I just want to have some fun with it. As I said at the beginning of this video, this is more of a wish list. Books that I wish that will be on it so I can read them, so I don't have to buy extra books, I guess. But on the 5th of March, we will definitely find out which books are on the long list and which are not. And it's going to be surprising to see how many I actually got right, because I'm thinking I got them all wrong. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun researching the books a little bit further, finding out who the publishers were and all the rest of it. And as I said at the beginning, the criteria for you to fall into the Women's Prize for Fiction for 2024, you had to be published between the 1st of April and of 2023 and the 31st of March in 2024. I did have a couple that have just been released as well. And I probably should say if I wouldn't be surprised if Yellowface landed on this as well. That's just a little bonus one, a little bit of a cheat sheet there, you know. I'm thinking, that's quite a popular book. I can't see why it wouldn't be put forward. And all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that comes up. I've already read it, so then I'd have two on the list that I've read. Anyway, my voice is starting to give out on me after all this talking. As I said, this has just been a fun time. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you found some books that you can look at a little bit further and you can read, and they might be on the long list. You never know. I'd just like to say thank you to all the people that have brought books to my attention as well. I really do appreciate it. But that is it for me. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Also, leave me a comment down below. Have you read any of these books and what you thought of them? And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe, because we are in the Women's Prize for Fiction season. And that means that there is going to be a lot of content around this, especially my reading vlogs where I'm reading the entire long list. But as I said, that is it from me today. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Keep turning those pages, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.